Hi everyone, this is Jaimini Astrology. Welcome back to my channel. Today I decided to do a video on Prince Harry and Prince William because I recently discovered that they actually have the same birth card in the Cards of Truth system, which is the Nine of Clubs. I found this very interesting because it kind of threw me off a little bit that they had the same birth card of the Nine of Clubs, but once I started doing a bit more research into this video, I found a lot of really interesting things about their personalities that can be determined through not only their birth card, the Nine of Clubs in the Cards of Truth system, but also in other modalities of astrology, such as Jaimini Astrology and Human Design even, which has it has aspects of astrology in the system. So I decided to really make this video and focus on analyzing the differences in their personalities, because if you've been following the royal family, you'll know that in recent years Prince Harry stepped down from his duties as a senior member of the royal family, and then eventually left the UK altogether, while William has actually really stepped up in his role as a senior royal, and he very much seems to be gearing up towards becoming a future monarch because, of course, he is third in line to the throne after his father, Prince Charles. So really the aim of this video is to take a bit of a deep dive into their individual personalities by analyzing their charts through these three different astrological modalities that I mentioned. So Jaimini Astrology, which is a school of Vedic astrology, the Cards of Truth, which combines cartomancy with Vedic astrology, and also Human Design, which uses components of astrology, the I Ching, Kabbalah, and quantum physics in its system. So I'm going to start with with Jaimini Astrology and talking about Prince William and Prince Harry's Atmakaraka, or their AK. In Jaimini Astrology, there is a planet in everyone's chart called the Atmakaraka, or AK, and what this planet signifies is that Atma means soul, so it's essentially a person's soul planet. And the way that you calculate what your soul planet is that in your astrology chart, you look at the 7 embodied planets, not including the nodes. And so whatever planet has the highest degree in your chart, the highest degrees, that's going to be your Atmakaraka planet. So with Prince William and Prince Harry is actually a Sun AK or Atmakaraka, and Prince William is a Venus AK. So Harry has a Sun AK and William has a Venus AK. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the relationship of these two planets to each other. Venus and the Sun are actually natural enemies in astrology, and this is because Venus is about making commitments in our life, and these commitments are sustainable and useful to both parties, usually. Meaning, so you as a person are useful to your partner, and they are useful to you. And so you make a commitment to one another to make a sustainable relationship. But the Sun is actually a separating planet, and it's very much a planet of individuality, and it's about discovering and recognizing who you are, who you truly are as an individual. So if you haven't really discovered that, who you are as an individual, and you haven't discovered your full creative potential as an individual, so you're not really in a place yet to have commitments in your life, which is Venus. So that's really telling about William being this Venus Atmakaraka and Harry being the Sun Atmakaraka, because as we can see with Prince William, he is really committed to his role as a senior royal, and he has been for a really long time now. So his Venus Atmakaraka is really shining through there, whereas Prince Harry's Atmakaraka is actually the Sun, and the Sun is not wanting to make commitments. Like, the Sun is a separating planet, which is why whenever you have a planet conjunct the Sun, it's usually combust. And which is why when we stand outside too long on a sunny day, we'll get sunburned. So it's not, making commitments is not as easy for the Sun unless it's, again, really discovered its full creative potential. And that's going to be different for everyone as an individual. And for Harry, it seems like he didn't really find that creative potential from his Sun until later in life. And so, again, the Sun and Venus are enemies in that way when it comes to astrology. And also, the Sun is actually debilitated in the sign of Libra, which is ruled by Venus. So that's because, again, once we make committable relationships, who we are really gets limited. And my teacher, Ernst Wilhelm, probably said it best, because he described it as this warm little loving prison to the Sun when the Sun is in Libra. And yeah, I found that analogy really funny. Not that either of them have their Sun in Libra. Harry's actually a Virgo Sun, and William is actually a Cancer Sun, but this is just an analogy to give you a better idea of the enemy relationship of their Atmakarakas. So now I'm going to talk about the placement of their Atmakarakas in their Navamsha chart, or the D9 divisional chart. In Vedic astrology, the D9 divisional chart, or the Navamsha chart, is actually a really important chart that shows you the dharma that you're meant to follow in life. It can also determine if you're going to get married or not, but that's like another video, so I'm not really going to talk about that. But what I am going to talk about is where the Atmakaraka for both Prince William and Prince Harry falls in each of their Navamsha charts. And this placement of the Atmakaraka in your Navamsha is called the Svamsha. So I'm going to be referring to it from now as the Svamsha. So it's really telling, based on just this information on each of their Svamshas, about the way that both Harry and William have been conducting their lives so far. So I'm going to begin talking about Harry, who has his Atmakaraka in the sign of Cancer. So he's a Cancer Svamsha. Okay, so when you have your Svamsha in Cancer, it's a bit of a difficult placement. So Jaimini says, at a distant place, water, frigidity, leprosy, etc. So that's how it's been translated from Jaimini's text when has described having the placement of your Svamsha or your Atmakaraka in Cancer, in the sign of Cancer. So it's kind of a little bit counterintuitive, because Cancer, as the fourth sign, it's the house of the home and homeland. So we would think that Cancer would be the house of our own country, like one's own country, our own place. But actually that's not the case with the sign of Cancer, because Jaimini writes, next at a distant place, which is a foreign country, essentially. And Jaimini states that the sign of Cancer is the sign of foreign countries. And usually when the AK is in the sign of Cancer in the Navamsha, a person will live in a foreign country at a certain point of their life. A certain point in their life, they will probably live in a far distant place from their birth, from their birthplace. So, for example, with Prince Harry, he was born in the UK. He was born in England, and now he's moved to the US and he's living in Santa Barbara, California. So that's a distant place. And again, usually it means a foreign place, which is what it meant in Harry's chart. Cancer can also mean foreigners, and it gives those effects. So the next part of that translation in Jaimini, where he says water frigidity, Cancer is a water sign, and it's also a Brahmin sign. So the AK in Cancer, or the Svamsha in Cancer, can be a very high-minded person who's interested in spirituality, but also they can be overly attached, overly emotional, and they tend to develop attachments very easily and are tenacious with those attachments. But if they become too tenacious about these attachments, they will develop water-based or emotional-based diseases, according to Jaimini. That's another thing that can happen when you have your Svamsha in Cancer. And then he also writes leprosy. And again, this was written thousands of years ago, when leprosy was a very prominent disease. And even though it still exists, it's very isolated in the countries that it exists in. It's pretty much been wiped out in the Western world. But again, in ancient times, when Jaimini was recording these sutras, it was very much more prevalent and prominent. And basically what he meant by leprosy is that it was a disease that could condemn a person to a life of isolation and stigmatization, because essentially they would be away from people and they would not participate in society. They had to be separated because it was a contagious disease. And so this is really this symbolism is really telling in Prince Harry's life, because once he started his family with Meghan Markle, he really felt, and they both really felt, isolated from the life that he was leading with the royal family. And so there was the stigmatization as well, because as we know, Meghan Markle is biracial. And so he felt ultimately that in order to live his life with his family and to be happy, truly happy and free, they had to leave. And so they had to leave England altogether and really isolate themselves. And yeah, that's really how this symbolism played out with Prince Harry having his Svamsha in Cancer, this kind of like contagious disease imagery. It really did lead him to having to isolate himself and leave his place of origin, and again move to a foreign country, really. And this also has to do with Cancer and their emotional nature. and their expectations and attachments. So when a person with a Cancer Svamsha, when they get too far in those attachments, in those emotional attachments to the people that they love, and if they're rebuffed or if their expectations are not met emotionally, it can make them feel again like a leper or very kind of isolated and shunned and unwanted. And so we can really see that with Prince Harry in some of the interviews that he's been doing recently since moving from the UK, and leaving the royal family altogether and stepping down from his duties as a senior member of the royal family. We can really see that he feels really isolated emotionally, especially from his brother and his father. And it really comes across in his interviews. So a challenge for someone with their Svamsha and Cancer is basically to kind of regulate their emotions and try to not feel so isolated, because neediness can also become a problem. That's something to keep in mind when you have this placement. And yeah, so that's a little bit about what it means to have your Svamsha and Cancer. And as we can see through Prince Harry's life, this really comes across in his chart. Next, I'm going to talk about Prince William and his Svamsha. So Prince William has his AtmaKaraka in the sign of Leo in his Navamsha. So he has a Leo Svamsha. Now, Jaimini states for a Leo Svamsha, beasts of prey remaining in one's own place. So that's the sutra that Jaimini wrote for a Leo Svamsha. Beasts of prey remaining in one's own place. So what that means basically is Leo is the king of the jungle. He's the lion, and he really wants to lord over his own territory. And that's the challenge of Leo. So having your Svamsha in Leo, you are usually someone who does very well in life. Whatever you do, you usually do it very well. And we can see that with Prince William and how well suited he is to kind of taking on this eventual role of future king. And yeah, so when you have a Leo Svamsha, basically you become king of what you do. But the problem is they don't like to venture out into different territories and explore new things. They're not really as curious about new things, like say, for example, an AtmaKaraka or Svamsha and Gemini would be. So they can become really fixed on their own field and becoming an expert in their own field. And they usually like to just stay in that field, and usually that happens wherever they grow up and live. They don't really like to go to foreign countries and to live in foreign countries, or they don't like to go to faraway places. They like either to stay in their home state or their hometown and really lord over it. So, of course, we can see that in Prince William. He married Kate, who's also from England, so he didn't really, he was never known to date anyone from abroad like Harry was. Most of Harry's girlfriends were from different countries, like they weren't native to England, which is really interesting. And again, that ties into Cancer being related to foreigners, whereas Leo is the sign of really staying in your own lane kind of thing, and not wanting to leave your country of origin or birth, and kind of just wanting to build on what you have. So that's really interesting. And again, when you have your Svamsha in Leo, it can be any chosen, you can do very well in any chosen field. You can really excel at it. Whatever you choose to do, you will excel in that field. And again, that's something that Prince William is doing now. But the challenge of the AtmaKaraka in Leo is leadership. So because they usually excel at what they do, they become a leader in what they do, and they have to learn how to be a good leader, basically. When you have your Svamsha in Leo, one of the challenges of this placement is that you are going to become a leader regardless. So just like Prince William is the heir to the throne, he's going to become king eventually. He's going to have to learn how to become a good leader and really be worthy of being future king. And then in his sutram, Jaimini also says beasts of prey, and that really means their Leo Svamsha person is going to have challenges to their leadership by other people who are very good beasts of prey, which is basically other lions. And so what that means in William's case is that there have been a lot of challenges to his leadership. He actually did a international tour recently with Kate Middleton, and they did get a lot of backlash because the Commonwealth in general is not something, it's very outdated. So they got a lot of backlash for going on that tour in general. But things like that, having to weather this storm of trying to become a good leader despite challenges to your leadership. And so with a Leo Svamsha, usually the challenges to their leadership is only going to come if they're doing a poor job. And so what they're really working on is knowing how to be a good leader and to constantly live up to that, basically. And yeah, so that's a little bit about what it's like having your Svamsha in Leo, which is what Prince William has in his chart. So now that we've covered the AtmaKaraka for both Prince William and Prince Harry, I'm going to talk a little bit about their Nine of Clubs birth card. So I'm going to focus on their Nine of Clubs birth card and their Sun card, which is the Nine of Spades, and because that's a really important card in both of their spreads because it's another black 9. So yeah, the Nine of Clubs is a very deep card because the number 9 is connected to Ketu, which is the south node of the moon. The esoteric or numerological symbolism of the number 9 is that the outer does not fulfill the inner, meaning that there's always something inside that's not to be found outside, and that this something is the completed self. The keywords of the 9 and the potentials of K2 are completion, happiness, inner harmony, though not necessarily outer, higher consciousness and bliss. The Nine of Clubs is connected to the Sanskrit lunar mansion called Paramamitra, which translates to most highly friendly. Its symbolism in nature is an array of leaves lying upon the ground where they begin to decompose. And that's after getting blown off the trees by the wind. They're now lying on the ground waiting to decompose. So I'm just going to briefly mention some important meanings behind the Nine of Clubs. A really important meaning behind this card is completing a business deal that will be a lasting one. So the Nine of Clubs is a really important card of getting our life back on track and going in the right direction. So this connotation of a lasting business deal, you can really see that in kind of this succession to the throne that happens in British monarchy. And we know that both Prince William and Prince Harry were both kind of born into this royal family. They were born princes. And so there's this long line of succession that just by being born, they're automatically brought into this lasting business deal, you can kind of call it. So that's really important symbolism for them. And this aspect of getting our life back on track and going in the right direction is more so prominent in Harry's life right now, as we've seen him make a lot of huge changes over the last couple of years, including essentially uprooting his life to start over in America. The Nine of Clubs card always has to do with long-lasting things, as I said, whatever it is. And it can also be a card of long distance or something far away, which again ties into Harry's chart more because, again, he moved far away, a very long distance from where he was brought up in England. And so you can really see how his Cancer Svamsha and his Nine of Clubs cards kind of led him in the same direction of moving abroad eventually. So this connotation of long distance can also represent a long distance relationship or any long distance journey, which a Nine of Clubs birth card person has to take. Now, as I mentioned before, this can be related to the succession to the British throne again. Currently, Queen Elizabeth is the Queen of England, and second in line to the throne, once she passes away, it's Prince Charles. Prince William is third in line to the throne, and then his son, Prince George, is fourth in line to the throne, etc., etc. So this really long line of succession ties in well to both of their birth cards. The Nine of Clubs also has to do with deciding to sign a marriage contract and go the distance in your relationship, declaring you want to be together with someone for a long time. And as we both know, both Prince William and Prince Harry are both married. And we got to watch the royal weddings on TV. So this card also represents a journey to some end or finality that you want. And it's really a finality that's the opposite of a termination. So it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad finality. And so, again, its symbolism in nature is like when a leaf has finally found its resting space a long way from the tree. And once it's in that space, it's going to stay there and decompose into dirt, essentially. So the Nine of Clubs birth card essentially it's only going to go on this long distance journey if it knows that that journey has a definitive reason and purpose for them in their life that's going to get them going in the right direction. So Nine of Clubs people don't go on journeys kind of on a whim. It's like they have this set path that they're always looking towards. The nines are the end of the suit. So another signification of the Nine of Clubs is that it can signify that you've arrived at your destination and you got what you're looking for. And again, that's because you're going in the right direction. And so this is really important to Nine of Clubs people, because if you're a Nine of Clubs birth card and you don't feel like you're going in the right direction for yourself, and this can mean if your life isn't working because your energy, your gifts, your talents aren't suitable for one thing, but you're instead trying to do this other thing. So you're kind of forcing yourself in another direction. When you do something like that and you're not following the right direction for yourself and you're trying to go in a direction that goes against kind of, again, every part of your being, really, that's when a Nine of Clubs person can become really torn in half, and it can cause them to get really sick or ill, because it essentially fosters this feeling like their life has no purpose, basically. And we can see that in Harry's case, he pretty much felt this way when he was still living in England, working as a senior member of the royal family, especially once he married Meghan and could see all of the backlash and racism she was facing, and how he had been working his whole life to fit into this firm and do as he was told, and then to suddenly feel like he wasn't going in the right direction. It kind of, that's what gave him the spark to, get up and leave and be like, okay, this isn't where I want my life to go. And so he had to take things into his own hands, essentially, and that's because it was making him sick. Like, he was mentally not in a good place, and neither was Meghan. So that's kind of a real life example of what happens to a Nine of Clubs birth card person when they're not following the right path for themselves. Because again, this birth card is about naturally going in the right direction for you as an individual. And so relating the Nine of Clubs back to their Svamshas again, William, as a Leo Svamsha, Leo wants to lord over its own territory. And so Svamsha in Leo is usually someone who succeeds very well in life at whatever they do, and they can become king of what they do. And as we know, William has been groomed his entire life to be the heir to the throne, so it's clearly something he's been training for since he was very young. And he wants to step into this role and is ready for the responsibility of it all. As we can see from his public interactions since becoming the Duke of Cambridge. So in William's case, he didn't have this challenge that Prince Harry did of not feeling like he was going in the right direction for his life, because for him as a Nine of Clubs, he actually did find his right direction of taking care of his established kingdom, the kingdom he was born into, really. He's always known that he's the heir to the throne, and so it seems like he's waited his whole life to become king. And that's really this long-term path and final destination or journey that he, as a Nine of Clubs person, has been working towards. It's always been his definitive purpose. So in William's birth card, being the Nine of Clubs, we can see that in his life, he feels like he's always been going in the right direction for himself. So it's interesting to look at the way that this contrast has always played out for both in William's life and in Harry's life of this Nine of Clubs birth card. So next I'm going to talk about their Nine of Spades Sun card. Another important card for the Nine of Clubs birth card person is the Nine of Spades, which is their Sun card. The reason this card is important is because it's another 9 card, so it's another deep card, because again, the 9 numerologically is connected to K2 or the South Node, and so it's wanting to go really deep with this Nine of Clubs. And all nines have a very great potential for extreme levels of happiness. However, the happiness of the 9 is always a happiness that's hard for humans to embrace because it requires less thinking of the self. And 9s in particular require a complete surrender of the self. So the Nine of Spades itself is a card with a particularly severe reputation. However, one of the nicer things about this card is that it can make a person deeply empathetic towards other people's struggles and hardships. And being as it is the Sun card for both Prince Harry and Prince William, this indicates that they as individuals innately have this power to use to build their lives on, this power of empathy. And so we can see this empathy carried in both of them through their philanthropic work, because we know that both Prince William and Prince Harry are attached to a number of different charities and philanthropic endeavors as part of their duties as senior members of the royal family. Philanthropy is very important to them. For example, a notable endeavor that Prince Harry founded and is still involved with is the Invictus Games, which uses the power of sports to inspire recovery and rehabilitation among injured and sick military people. So that was an organization that Harry founded because he himself was a member of the military at one point in his life, and he developed a lot of compassion and empathy for people who are in service, who are injured, and he wanted to create this organization that could help them kind of get better through sport. There are other aspects of the Nine of Spades which don't feel as pleasant. This is a card that can invoke the feeling of there's nothing that I can do about it. It can be the card of being forced against one's will to do things. It's the card of slavery and slaves. It's the card of a heavy burden. And it can also be a card of being forced to do something that you didn't want to do as a child because of your parents. And so you can see that this card carries a lot of heavy connotations of being forced to do something against your own will. And when it's your Sun card, as the Nine of Spades is for both Prince William and Prince Harry, so that means that the power that they both innately have to build their lives upon is potentially being forced to take on a role and perform duties such as being next in line to the throne, being a future king, royalty. So it's taking on duties that they don't want to do because they have no other choice. The spade suit in general represents themes like survival, work, sorrows, afflictions, worry, war, strife, and disease. And we know with Harry in particular that he would have viewed his life in this way more so than William, because Harry's actual sun, the planet Sun, falls in his King of Diamonds Mercury card. The King of Diamonds is a card of having limited resources to work with and therefore needing to make great sacrifices in order to rule your kingdom and keep your life running smoothly. And the Mercury card position indicates how we follow the rules and play the game of life. So we can see that Harry views these Nine of Spades burdens that he's been carrying his whole life as more of a sacrifice that's being forced upon him, whereas William, on the other hand, he actually has his sun falling in his moon card, which is the Two of Hearts. The Two of Hearts is a lot more of a pleasant card. It's, especially on the moon position, it's really a wonderfully harmonious position for the moon to be in. And that's because it's a 2 on the second card position. And we see that William also has his moon in this card, manifesting and protecting the card as well. And the moon card indicates the resources we have at our disposal and that which we feel comfortable with in order to manage our life into a fulfilling situation. The Two of Hearts is the love card, simply put. Hearts are something we come together with, and because they're the second suit, and twos are about flying together, coming together, so the Two of Hearts is really the strongest love card there is. And so with this card holding William's Sun card, we can say that the heavy burden of the Nine of Spades, which his life is built upon and around, is not something he actually views as a burden at all or a sacrifice, unlike Harry does. Instead, for William, this heavy burden is something that he would embrace and does embrace, because the Two of Hearts is again a card of coming together with something that we love. And so it comes naturally to him, and it's therefore not something he feels forced to do, which again is kind of the polar opposite to how Harry feels. So with William, it's rather an obligation that he very much comes together with, and it's something that feels good to him and something that he finds fulfilling, nourishing, caring, and supportive to the path and trajectory he's walking through in life. And again, this corresponds nicely with Prince William's Leo Svamsha, which allows him to excel in his kingdom and really become the king of his kingdom. And in this case, life imitates astrology, because he is an heir to the throne, to the British monarchy. So we can really see, just having looked at both of William and Harry's Atmakarakas and their Svamshas, and now their birth card, we can really see this clear dichotomy in the two princes, in both of their paths. And this is all just through comparing their sun cards and looking at their Svamshas and their AtmaKarakas. And this also explains really well why Harry, in the Oprah interview, he mentioned that he and William are just on different paths in life. Their astrology charts, again, really confirm that. And technically they are on the same path because they're both Nine of Clubs birth cards, but the paths, as Harry put it, have really veered in completely opposite directions. Nine of Clubs paths in their personal journeys to finding their own right direction in life. And this point can be given further confluence when we look at their Incarnation Crosses in their human design, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So in Harry's sit-down interview with Oprah, he famously made the comment that he felt trapped within the system like the rest of his family are before meeting Meghan Markle. And his exact words were, "My father and my brother are trapped and they don't realize, they don't get to leave, and I have huge compassion for this." And so just this statement alone speaks volumes to that feeling that the Nine of Spades Sun card gives him of, again, being forced to do something against your will, being trapped. He felt trapped in the system. And yeah, one of the indications, again, of the Nine of Spades is feeling this heavy obligation of being forced to do something against your will. And that right there really summed up why Harry feels this way and why he made that statement of believing that his brother and his dad are trapped as well, when actually William probably doesn't feel that way at all. And we kind of do know that because he's made that comment to some of the media that he doesn't feel trapped. So yeah, that's a really interest to dissect when it comes to their different psyches of Prince William and Prince Harry and how they feel about the royal obligations. And then again, of course, that compassion also shines through in this statement at Nine of Spades. Compassion. It can make a person deeply empathetic towards other people's struggles and hardships. So now I'm going to talk about human design and the Incarnation Crosses of Prince William and Prince Harry. Human design is a system similar to astrology that combines the principles of the Chinese I Ching, Kabbalah, the chakra system, astrology, and quantum physics to really analyze what's referred to as a person's human design charts. So in human design, there is something called an Incarnation Cross, and every person is essentially born with this Incarnation Cross that's unique to them based on their birth information. So each person's Incarnation Cross is uniquely tailored to them and the human experience they're meant to have here on Earth. And so in that sense, it's very similar to looking at the Svamshas in Vedic astrology or in Jaimini, looking at a person's AtmaKaraka in their Navamsha chart. They have a very similar kind of faded theme to them, with the Incarnation Cross in human design and the Svamsha in Jaimini Astrology. So now I'm going to share and briefly discuss the incarnation crosses of both Prince William and Prince Harry respectively, and how they really add confluence to their astrology and birth cards. So Prince William's incarnation cross is called the right angle path of the vessel of love, and it's made up of the gate 10, self-love, the gate 15 called extreme patterns, the gate 25 called universal love, and the gate 46 called the love of the body. So because of the name of the right angle path of the vessel of love, you would probably think that, Prince William having this as his incarnation cross and his path on human experience that he's meant to kind of play out here on Earth, you might think that it's this flowery path that's full of affection and love and like hippy dippy stuff. But in human design, love is considered to be closer to a pull of consciousness than like a romantic feeling or a hormonal response of the body to romance and procreation. So this incarnation cross is all about self-love, really, awareness, and pulling into the flow of love. And all crosses have a polarity, but for the vessel of love, it's feeling constriction from love and feeling hypercritical, feeling disconnected from the pull of consciousness. So the way that we have seen this falling or kind of playing out with William is this separation that he's experienced with Harry. There's like this huge disconnect in their relationship, which is kind of sad to see because they had such a strong bond as brothers, especially with the loss that they experienced of losing their mother at a young age. That really did bring them closer. But then in recent years, with Harry, starting his family and moving to the States, we see that there's this kind of chasm between them. And so William may feel that as his love being constricted and probably feeling hypercritical of Harry and his actions and just feeling disconnected from him because of that and feeling, separated in consciousness from him, probably not understanding where Harry is coming from in his consciousness in making the decisions that he made. And another way that this kind of hypercriticalness has played out is in some of the comments in the past that William has made about his mother and like the struggles that she faced after her separation with Prince Charles. We know that according to Diana at the time, William was really critical of her when news broke that she had an affair with James Hewitt. This was when Harry and William were children. I believe it came out in an interview that she did at the time, like this groundbreaking interview. And we know from sources, in Diana's own words, that William was really critical of her over that transgression. And we don't know if he showed the same type of criticism to his father and what transpired with him and Camilla, but that was something that kind of stood out in my mind when I learned that Prince William has the Incarnation Cross. And we've also seen him describe his mother's behavior in later years as mounting paranoia, which he blamed on the BBC. And there was this whole scandal of them kind of telling Diana a lie in order to get her to do that groundbreaking interview. So yeah, we can see different instances of this kind of feeling disconnected and feeling this hypercritical sort of attitude towards the people that Prince William loves in his life. So yeah, this kind of adds a lot of confluence to William's Leo Svamsha, which is wanting to really focus in on what you're good at and what you know, and not wanting to venture out. And so maybe this could mean not wanting to venture out in consciousness as well, tying into his Incarnation Cross, kind of not wanting to see other people's perspective, especially his loved ones. It's maybe being overly hypercritical of them and not wanting to hear them out for why they took the actions that they did, especially if they're actions that separated them from William. And so next I'm going to talk about Prince Harry's cross, which is called the Right Angle Path of Eden. This consists of the gate 6, which is friction, the gate 36, which is experiences, the gate 12, which is caution, and the gate 11, which is ideas. So those with the cross of Eden often have a coming of age circumstance in which they feel abandoned or cast out from their home of origin or family of origin. This cross has the theme of creating environments or situations in their world which meet their standard of Eden, the place they know intrinsically could exist for them. This cross is comprised of 3 turbulent and emotional gates and 1 blissful gate. While those with this cross may experience some stormy themes, they also strive to be building an ideal world, be it in their mind, body, practice, home, family, or career. This cross is about independently building the conditions for a peaceful life and seeking to engineer comfort and stability on the material plane. And right away we can see that this has so much confluence with what Harry has experienced, especially in the last few years. Again, they feel abandoned or cast out from their home of origin or family of origin. We know this because after moving to America, Harry has done a series of interviews where he talks about that. And basically, any media interview that he does, that's always the conversation whenever we see any media coverage about Prince Harry. And so this cross, again, it gives a lot of confluence to his Cancer Svamsha, because the Cancer Svamsha was about a foreign place, and it talked about a person leaving their country of origin and moving due to emotional lack that they experience in their life. And this cross has the same really strong themes of where the person leaves their home or family of origin, they feel cast out, and they're wanting to instead create environments or situations in their world which meets their standard of Eden, and a place they know intrinsically could exist for them. So again, the 9 of Clubs birth card is all about going in the right direction, getting on the path that's right for you as an individual, and straying or getting off of the path that's leading you in the wrong direction and making you sick, and like you just don't belong there. So yeah, there's really strong themes in both of their charts, especially Harry's, which is why I wanted to do this video, to see how there's this theme of like abandonment, having to leave, feeling like a leper, having these emotional disconnect. There's really strong themes of that in all three of these modalities for Prince Harry, in his human design Incarnation Cross, in his Jaimini Astrology, and in his cards of truth as well, through his birth card. And then for Prince William, the themes can be of, with his Svamsha, of being this king who has this kingdom, and like being someone who's born to do what he does, and his 9 of clubs being that he is on the right path. He has already found his path or his journey that's right for him, and it's a journey to an end that he wants, which is to become the future king. But his charts also point to the challenge of him having to learn how to express more universal love, especially to his immediate loved ones, his family members, and kind of venturing out from his little kingdom and trying to meet them halfway and bridge this kind of disconnect, and try not to be hypercritical. Because again, the Leo Svamsha, they can be very fixed in their way of seeing things and their emotions. And then unlike the Cancer Svamsha, which leads with their emotions, the Leo Svamsha, they don't lead with their emotions. They are kind of like, this is the path that I'm on. This is the kingdom that I have inherited, and this is where I'm going. So it's very like one-track mind, which there's nothing wrong with that, because as we can see through all of the influences on his astrological influences, that's the path that he was born to be living, and that's what he's doing. So yeah, I really wanted to do a sort of mini deep dive into the personalities of Prince William and Prince Harry, and kind of examine why, or analyze why, even though they have the same birth cards, they have such different paths in life. So I hope that through looking at their human design, their Jaimini astrology, and their cards of truth, that I was able to paint this picture for you all as well. And yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and comment below and let me know, or if you have any comments, I'd love to hear from you. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.